Hey, just a heads up to anyone who watched my Argyle review. That review was completely unscripted and more of my random thoughts jumbled together. I'm hoping to sound a lot more coherent and structured in this one. That being said, let's begin. So, right off the bat, before I say anything, I just want to let you all know that I love Disney with all my heart. I grew up watching these films, and I still watch them a lot to this day. Disney has meant a lot to me ever since I was a child, and I'm willing to bet it will remain a huge part of my life until the day I kick the bucket. So, everything I say in this video, I say out of respect for this company that's made some truly amazing movies and has been an integral part of my life since I was born. That being said, this movie was awful. So, if you haven't heard by now, Wish is Disney's latest film. It kind of flew under the radar up until it came out, and boy did it come out with a bang. I'm sure you saw reviews and posts online saying how it was written by AI, how it was generic, how the animation was ugly, how the villain was terrible, and so on and so forth. I'm not here to piggyback off of anyone's reviews, I'm trying to be original here, but really, they were alright. All of those critiques apply to this movie, and more. And for me, the worst part of this movie isn't anything in the movie itself. If you want to find out, stay tuned until the end, because today, I'm reviewing Wish. So for those who don't know, 2023 was the 100-year anniversary of Walt Disney Animation. Because of this, Disney wanted to make this movie as an homage to their previous works, which explains why it's similar to those classic movies, that being a fairy tale musical with an evil villain and a good protagonist with talking animals and goofy side characters to boot. Disney even went out of their way to market this movie as such, claiming how the villain was going to be great, the music was going to be great, this is going to be a true return to form. Boy, were they wrong. Our film opens up with your standard book narration, telling us about the city of Rosas, an island in the Mediterranean that is ruled by the benevolent King Magnifico, who traveled around the world to learn magic and now has the power to grant people's wishes. We then first meet our main character, Asha. She lives with her mother and grandfather, and she's nervous because she's about to interview to be King Magnifico's apprentice. She goes out in the town and does a quick musical number with the people of Rosas. I just want to point out that it is exceedingly clear that everything we know about the city so far is that it is a perfect paradise. Everyone here is happy, healthy, and occasionally gets their wishes granted. This sounds like a wonderful place to live. Everyone should be perfectly content. I also want to point out that this opening musical number sounds nothing like classic Disney musical theater, and more like generic pop. Disney said they wanted to make this like their classic movies, but instead of hiring back all of their old best composers and lyricists like Alan Menken, they hire a bunch of modern pop artists. It just feels like this isn't what I signed up for. Asha then arrives at the castle to talk to her 7 friends who work there. And then you might notice that each of these 7 friends represents each of Snow White's 7 dwarfs, in terms of color scheme and personality. This is kind of a cute reference, but given the fact that there are 7 of them, we don't really get to know any of them very much at all. The one friend who does get a fair amount of screen time and lines is Dahlia, who is meant to represent Doc. She's only here for exposition though. All she does in this scene is give information to Asha, or more likely, the audience. And that's kind of what she does for the rest of the movie until the end. One of her friends who represents Sleepy does actually get a little bit of development, and don't worry, we will get back to that later. Asha then goes to interview with Magnifico. Surprisingly, Magnifico likes her enough where he takes her into the room where he keeps all the wishes and they sing a cheesy musical number. Also, it's here in the movie when Asha tells Magnifico about her dad and how he used to look at the stars with her and then he got glass bones and paper skin and died or whatever. But now, how am I supposed to feel any emotional weight or connection to the scene when we don't even get to see Asha with her dad at all? The movie has a really bad problem of telling and not showing all the way through. In almost every other Disney movie with a dead parent, we either get to see the parent die, or at least get some scenes of the protagonist and the parents before they die. This usually makes it a lot more impactful, but here we're just told that she has a dead dad out of nowhere, and they literally never address this again for the rest of the movie. I'm not kidding! I also want to point out that in this scene, Magnifico talks about how his family was all killed when he was young, and how he wants to prevent that from ever happening to anybody on the island. This is actually some decent character motivation, though it would have been better if we got to see it. However, does the movie do anything with this to develop Magnifico as a character? I think you know the answer to that, but nevertheless, stay tuned to find out my thoughts. So most of the songs in this movie, including this one, have beautiful melodies and notes. That isn't the issue here. The issue is the lyrics. Not only are they goofy as fuck, but they're shoving in way too many words per line, and it makes them sound like they have to rush to get the line out. Not only this, but the song gaslights you into thinking some words rhyme. Arms, does, and cost don't rhyme, movie! We then find out that Asha wants Magnifico to grant her grandpa's wish. It's her grandpa's 100th birthday. He comes across as a little apprehensive at this, given the fact that she asked him for something on her first day. The movie wants us to think that this is a bad thing on Magnifico's part, but honestly, I'm kind of siding with him here. He's given these people a perfect paradise to live in, yet every time someone interviews or becomes his new apprentice, they always ask him for stuff, and Asha did it on her first day. It makes Magnifico feel like Rick Sanchez. He's tired of being asked to do stuff for people all the time. We then find out that Magnifico won't grant most of the wishes asked by the kingdom because he says they are too vague and can be dangerous. Asha is shocked by this and says that the people deserve more than that. But here's the thing, movie. I think Magnifico is right. You do understand that Magnifico was supposed to be the villain. However, he's done nothing evil so far. Yes, he won't grant most of the wishes, but that's kind of for the right reason. In almost every movie, book, or any story about wishes, one of the main lessons is be careful what you wish for, and that wishes always come with some sort of evil twist. A famous example being the monkey's paw. None of the wishes in that book go right. There's always some sort of twist because the wishes were too vague. You have to be specific. Magnifico even says this, and it makes perfect sense. We also need to keep in mind that this is an island full of a lot of people and more coming all the time. So many of them are making wishes. Isn't it just kind of logic that maybe not everyone will get their wish granted? I mean, Magnifico only grants one wish a month. Not only this, maybe not every wish should be granted. Magnifico could be protecting the world from people who want dangerous, evil, ignorant, or just plain stupid wishes. And you might be wondering, why doesn't Magnifico just grant wishes more often? I feel like he shouldn't be obliged to. Again, he's given these people a perfect paradise to live in, and the wishes are just kind of a bonus. Honestly, I'd still be really grateful to live there. And I truly understand that he should be giving them back. Again, this is kinda evil, but at the same time, even he admits that most of these people won't really pursue them themselves. And knowing most people in fiction and in the real world, they won't either. They're so worried about it that they'd rather just give up their wishes for the tiny, tiny fraction of a chance that it'll come true, rather than pursuing it themselves. So really, I side with Magnifico here. His vision is flawed, but honestly, I think it makes a lot more sense than Asha's. Then we see that Magnifico will not grant Asha's grandfather's wish, and Asha gets all sad about it and she has a bit of an emotional argument with her family. Her grandpa says he doesn't even want to know what the wish is if he knows it's not going to become true. This argument with Asha's family doesn't feel emotionally driven at all because we've gotten literally no scenes of these guys doing anything together except exposition. Yes, Asha tells us that her grandfather is a good man and does good things, but again, the movie is telling us and not showing. Of course she would say her own grandfather is good, but for all we know, he could be the Rosa State Killer going out and doing evil things every night, but we just have to take Asha's word for it? If the movie decided to show how good of a man her grandfather is, and show scenes with Asha and him and her mother together, then maybe the scene would be more emotionally impactful. But for now, it comes across as the token fallout scene that every movie needs. Look at the movie Mulan. True, there was an emotional falling out between Mulan and her father, but before this, we get this really beautiful and emotional scene where Mulan is upset after screwing up her chances with the matchmaker. Her father then comes to her and tells her that the most beautiful blossom takes the longest time to bloom. It's such a sweet moment that really shows that even though she's different and not what she thinks an ideal daughter should be, Mulan's father still loves her and has faith in her. This makes the scene where Mulan decides to fight in her father's place and run away even more impactful. Here, when Asha runs away, it just feels hollow because we've gotten no time to develop these relationships. I don't even think we know her mom's name at this point, and if we do, I forgot. Now we get to the iconic song, This Wish. And I gotta tell you guys, every time I hear this song, I get chills, and I am close to tears. The melody is so beautiful. The instrumentals are amazing. The vocal performance by Ariana DeBose is just gorgeous. The background vocals are amazing as well. This is the groundwork for an amazing Disney song. But the lyrics suck. As I said before, almost every song in this movie has the issue of stuffing too many lyrics and syllables per line, and it just makes the song come across as frantic and frankly sloppy. Not only this, but the lack of drawn-out words really doesn't let Ariana truly express her talent. Give us some belts for God's sake! Not only this, but some of these lyrics straight up don't make sense. As many have pointed out, throw caution to every warning sign. I don't even think I need to explain why that makes absolutely no sense. And once again, they're trying to replicate Lin-Manuel Miranda, but boy are they failing. This truly could have been my favorite Disney song of all time, if only the lyrics were cleaner and better thought out. So during the song, Asha makes a wish upon a star, just like how they used to do things before Magnifico, and Magnifico senses something is wrong, and everyone sees the lights from her doing the wish thing. It's in this scene when it's really implied that Magnifico and his wife are both the villains. Also, yeah, I forgot to point out Magnifico has a wife. She's done pretty much nothing this entire time so far except be the token queen. And the scene really does make it feel like that they're both going to be evil, that it's going to be a husband and wife evil duo, which would be amazing and unique. I know that's what the creators were originally trying to do. You can kind of get a sense of that right here, however, but they just didn't fully take all those aspects out of the movie. Because even though it feels like they're building up to Queen Amaya being a villain, nothing really happens with it. Which is a shame because this could have made her a lot more interesting and have more of a character besides just being the good wife to the evil husband. And then the star Asha wishes upon comes down to Earth. Yeah, it's kind of cute, but did we really need two marketable cute characters in this movie? Also, how original is the name Star, guys? Am I right? Star? Also, it was around this point in the movie when I realized just how painfully unfunny and unoriginal Asha is. I know a lot of people pointed out that she feels just like a bunch of modern Disney princesses rolled into one, how she's dorky and quirky, but that's just kind of it. I really have nothing else to add to that. Her jokes are painfully unfunny, and I feel like I've seen her character in 1,000 movies before. Watching this movie just made me want to watch Princess and the Frog again, because Tiana was one of the best modern Disney princesses. Oh god, I really said modern even though that movie came out like 15 years ago. Oh, jeez, I'm getting old. And at this point, the star shows off its magic powers and makes the goat talk. I also forgot to mention that Asha has a pet goat named Valentino. I didn't bring it up because the goat has done literally nothing so far and legit does not do anything to progress the plot at all for the rest of the movie, except for one small thing that happens by accident. We'll get to that later. I also want to ask, what exactly does Asha wish for? She wishes for something, quote, more for her family and the people of Rosas, and the star comes down to help her. But like, what Magnifico says, what does that really mean? It's such a vague wish that it could mean a great many things. The movie's adamant that a vague wish isn't that bad, even though a lot of other stories, including Disney stories in the past, had the theme of be careful what you wish for. This is also where I have to say I really hate how she wants more for the people of Rosas. This really feels hollow and unnecessary. It was here when I realized that this plot point reminded me of the movie Lightyear. For those who haven't seen it or haven't heard about it, Lightyear was seen as kind of mid. My biggest problem with it is that there seems to be absolutely no stakes for Buzz's motivation. Long story short, in the movie, Buzz accidentally crashes the spaceship and maroons everyone in the crew there. He feels guilty and wants to desperately correct his mistake and get them off the planet. But is there really a rush to do so? Every time Buzz flies around the star nearby to try and find the correct fuel combination that they need to leave, he ends up traveling forward in time by 4 years. But each time he does, life seems to get better and better for everybody. Even his partner got engaged, which wouldn't have happened if they weren't marooned. There seems to be absolutely no stakes. Everyone seems to be happy and starting to settle. I don't understand why there's a rush for Buzz to want to get them out of there, except for his ego, which isn't exactly a compelling character motivation in my opinion. Especially when he's just watching all of his friends around him get old and die for no reason. Same thing applies here. The people of Rosas have a perfect life. They live in a paradise. They get to live there for free and don't even get charged rent. And King Magnifico's always there if they need to vent. There seems to be no struggle, poverty, or anything wrong with this utopia at all, really. And for those that were saying, well, we didn't really get to see that much of the city. There could be a lot wrong with that we just don't know about. To that I say, that would make perfect sense if the movie showed it to us. You shouldn't have to assume too much for a movie to be better. Remember, movies have to show, not tell, and especially not make you do mental gymnastics to correct the poor writing. Asha is wishing for more for the people of Rosas when they clearly have everything they need. Some people even get wishes granted occasionally, which seems awesome to me. I would love to live there. And then the star makes a bunch of forest animals talk and they get into a terrible musical number that sounds like it would be in a preschool kids show. Also, the talking trees reminded me of Pocahontas. If you remind me of Pocahontas, you've already failed. No! Once again, this music doesn't sound like classic Disney or musical theater, it sounds like pop. But at this point, I'm just gonna lay off the music until we get to the one you're probably waiting for. Oh, and at this point, Magnifico even points out the fact that the only thing he's trying to do is make sure that no one's families get hurt again, like his. This actually sounds like decent character motivation and can make him a really good sympathetic villain, if only he was acting more villainous and less like the protagonist. This movie feels too afraid to actually make Magnifico evil, despite the fact that the plot wouldn't work without him being evil. So it's in a paradox that it just can't get out of. And I need to point out, up until this point in the movie, and for the rest of the movie after this, the GOAT has done nothing funny. He's done nothing of use to the plot, and all of his jokes are forced and cringe as all hell. Okay, so now Asha goes back to the castle to talk to her friends because she and the star need to go take her family's wishes back from Magnifico. This is the point where I truly realize that her friends do absolutely nothing. Her one friend just gives a bunch of exposition. All she does is just tell Asha what to do and where to go. It makes her come across as more of a video game NPC than an actual character. However, her one friend Simon, the sleepy one, has been getting a little more screen time. He's been shown to be sad because he's 18 years old, but his first wish wasn't granted for his 18th birthday, which is apparently a tradition here on the island. More will come to this later, but just know that the only two of her friends that get anything to do are either used for exposition or just to be sad for a few seconds. And then the star does... What the hell? I hate this movie. No, seriously, why is it in here? Not only is it just not funny, it does nothing to progress the plot at all. You might be thinking, well, it showcases the star's magical powers, but we already saw that with an entirely separate animal number, which was equally as bad. God, this movie feels like it was made for 4-year-olds. Don't you miss when Disney movies had deep themes and ideas that really made you think?
Mercenary. I prefer the term adventure capitalist.
You think it's some kind of a diamond. I thought it was some kind of a battery, but we're both wrong. It's their life force. That crystal is the only thing keeping these people alive. You take that away and they'll die.
Academics never want to get your hands dirty. Think about it. If you gave back every stolen artifact from a museum, you'd be left with an empty building. We're just providing a necessary service to the archaeological community.
Then Asha and the star steal her grandfather and her mother's wishes, and at this point, I started mentally checking out of the movie because I knew exactly where it was going. Also, during this is when Magnifico rallies the townspeople and tells them whoever turns in Asha will get their wish granted. This is starting to feel a tad bit more villainous, but it's too little too late. We're over 40 minutes into the movie, and this is the first thing he's done that truly came across as kinda evil. And again, why are we supposed to side with Asha when Magnifico's motivation makes perfect sense and hers go against the themes of almost every other wishing movie or story ever made? True, you can say this one's original and unique compared to those, but at some point, logic has to come over the plot. And here we go, the most iconic song in the movie. Everyone loves it, right? Okay, I'm done being sarcastic. The song blows and we all know it. True, it's catchy, but catchy doesn't automatically mean good. First off, these lyrics are also nonsensical and redundant. Half of these lines are him saying the same thing twice, but with different wording. And when he does say different words, they barely rhyme or don't rhyme at all. Don't even get me started on the chorus. It's just the same line over and over again with some background vocals. And once again, this is supposed to be the villain? This doesn't sound very villainous. Villain songs can be upbeat and whimsical too, so long as they have some darker undertones. But if not, is it really a villain song so much as a song that a character who's kind of mean sings? If you want more insight on this, go watch Shafrillis Productions' review on the movie. He made some pretty good points. I don't want to talk about this anymore. And here we go, the point of the movie where I officially realized there was no hope. Magnifico suddenly turns super evil when he opens his forbidden spellbook. I understand that it might contain some evil magic and spells, and that they talked about it a little bit earlier, but the transition from him being barely a villain to a super evil villain wanting to rule everyone and take all their wishes and literally destroy hopes and dreams as we know it is just so much whiplash and such poor character writing. It truly feels like the movie realized, oh wait, we didn't make our villain evil enough, but now the plot demands a truly evil villain. Oh well, we will just turn him into this malevolent force for no reason right now, just because the plot demands it. Ugh, this frustrates me so much I can't even express it.
You suck.
Okay, so now Asha returns home and she gives the wish back to her grandpa and he puts it back inside his heart or whatever, and he knows what it is now. This is when I realized that they didn't know exactly how to handle the wishes in this movie. Why are they treating these wishes like physical things that they have to steal from an evil guy? Like I said before, I think this plot would be a lot more compelling if the people of Rosas learned to stop relying on Magnifico and learn to take control of their own lives and find out what their wishes are for themselves. This old fart had 100 years of his life to discover what he truly wanted, but he just sat around waiting for it? How am I supposed to feel sad for this guy? Go out in the world and do something with your life. You should discover your own wish. Don't just rely on your teenage granddaughter to steal it from some bad guy. I feel like this movie could have had a really good message about self-discovery, but instead, it's just a generic kids movie. And here we find out as well as Magnifico that if he crushes the wishes and absorbs the power, it makes him super powerful and more evil. And suddenly he wants to do this for all the wishes. Does this sound like the exact same character from a few minutes ago? The one who said he wants to protect the people of the city and wants to prevent their families from dying just like what happened to his? The one who's trying to protect people by making sure dangerous and vague wishes don't get granted in order to make sure only the good ones do? Yeah, it sucks some people won't get their wishes granted, but don't forget, be careful what you wish for! Now that the plot demands for a truly evil bad guy, Magnifico all of a sudden wants to take all the wishes for himself and make himself super powerful and whatnot. This sounds nothing like the guy we knew a few minutes ago. This movie couldn't decide between having a sympathetic and compelling villain or a pure evil one, and just tried to do both, and boy oh boy, it does not work. Also, this isn't really important, but why were there 3 horses outside of Asha's house? In the scene, Magnifico ambushes them, and they escape by riding 3 horses that were outside the house, but Magnifico was there by himself. What, did he bring 2 guards with him, but they just went out to pick berries and smell the flowers? Also, I touched on this earlier, but how are we supposed to feel sad for Asha's mom when her wish gets crushed? Yeah, it's kind of sad to see it happen, but the movie wants to make this a super sad and emotional moment, but once again, we don't know this character at all, and we've gotten practically no screen time with her. It just comes across as the token sad thing needs to happen at this point in the plot. Okay, I'm just gonna try and breeze through the rest of this, because at this point I'm just frustrated. I have plenty of enough to say, and this video is just gonna be way longer than it should be. So Asha goes back, and she then finds out that Simon was the one who turned her in because he wanted Magnifico to grant his wish of being a loyal knight to the kingdom. The movie wants this to come across as a heartbreaking betrayal, but it really isn't because all Simon did was be a little sad at this point. Not only this, but it was super easy to tell that he was going to be the traitor, not only because he was the only one to get any sort of actual development, but he's also the only one in the friend group that wasn't standing in the crowd. I think that this twist was so bad it's on par with Argyle, and you guys should already know how I felt about the twists in Argyle. And this is where the movie really loses me, because this wish backfires on Simon, because his wish says he wants to be a loyal knight to the king. He turns in the rest of the friend group and helps hunt down Asha. Here's the thing though, isn't this wish not vague? Isn't this a specific wish, wanting to be a loyal knight to the king himself? I mean, that feels pretty specific to me, yet the movie shows that even non-vague wishes have consequences. This movie doesn't even know what wishes are good or bad. The movie only tells us that whatever Asha does or believes is what we should too, which is not at all how a movie should feel. Also here, the goat does the only helpful thing in the entire movie, which was accidentally discover the friend's hiding spot. I'm not kidding. That is legit the only thing that the goat does to progress the plot at all in the whole fucking movie. And here we get the song Knowing What I Know Now, which was okay, I guess, but once again, these words don't rhyme. Around and now don't frickin' rhyme. Using the same word twice is also not a rhyme. This song was honestly kind of carried by the percussion, and this epic percussion makes this song a little too epic to be in this movie. But the song still wasn't great. It's just a little better than the rest. And after this, around the climax, I don't know, I'm just breezing through. Magnifico says that he wants to destroy hopes and dreams, which might be the actual most generic thing I've ever heard a movie villain say. Okay, this climax is just kind of dumb, so I'm not going to explain it that well. But the climax is King Magnifico has everyone captured and bound by a spell, and is about to destroy all the wishes. However, Asha is able to inspire the people to break free of the prisons, of the imprisonment, or the spell, whatever, by using the power of friendship and believing in yourself. I'm not kidding. The only reason why they're able to break free of Magnifico's hold is because they all started believing in themselves and believing that they're all magical deep down inside. And they all start singing a reprise of the messy song from earlier. This causes them to break free of Magnifico's spell, and they banish him to the Phantom Zone. I feel like I shouldn't have to say this, especially to Disney, But solving your issues with the power of believing in yourself and the power of friendship is just beyond lazy and not at all what I would want kids to be watching. This isn't a Nick Jr. show. This is a movie that kids are going to be looking up to and taking inspiration from for years to come. Just like they did with all of Disney's previous works. But except then, there was usually some really good messages there. The ending is where I kinda see some potential here. Like how I asked for earlier, the movie does show the characters learning to take control of their own wishes at the end, and realize they don't need Magnifico. But this is far too late. The plot point wasn't developed at all in the entire movie. It doesn't make a true appearance until the end, and honestly, it makes it feel more like a MacGuffin quest than something they were learning the entire time. The only reason why these people learned to believe in themselves is because Asha started singing for no reason. This truly makes Asha feel like a savior for the movie when I would have loved to see the citizens saving themselves with Asha as like a guiding force. At the end, the movie doesn't even have the balls to actually send Magnifico to the Phantom Zone. Turns out he's just trapped in the headpiece of his scepter. The ending is also really confusing to me. The movie made it very clear that Magnifico turned evil because he opened the spellbook. He wasn't really that evil before this. Now we see that the evil spells no longer have a hold on him and he's back to his old self, at least sort of. Despite this, the movie still insists on punishing him and they throw him in the dungeon. What? This movie so desperately wanted to make Magnifico kinda sympathetic, but still chose a punishment in the end? I mean, it wasn't his fault he turned evil, it was the frickin' book's fault. Ugh, this feels so confusing. I don't know how I should feel, and the movie doesn't know how I should feel either. Then they all live happily ever after, and Asha becomes the new magic wish giver or whatever. The movie ends with a few more cheesy references, and the book closes. Okay, so my final thoughts, I don't really have any. I've said pretty much all I had to say throughout this video. I will say this movie felt like it was only made for children, and there is nothing here for adults to enjoy. The small things I did enjoy were almost completely overridden by the things I didn't enjoy. The plot is the most generic and kiddie plot I've seen in Disney in a long time. There are no deep themes or messages, and the ones they do try to implement just come across as half-baked. The music ranges from either decent to terrible, and not even the animation is good. Even Disney at its lowest points in the past 15 years have had some truly breathtaking animation. Even their worst movies still look fantastic, but I can't even give that to this movie, because it just looks unfinished. I don't care that they were trying to replicate the old 2D watercolor style, it's just not appealing to the eyes. You know what? The very moment I finished this movie, I was going to give it a very generous 5 out of 10. But the more I've been talking about it and seeing just how devoid of quality it is, I'm gonna give it a not quite as generous 3 out of 10. It didn't do too many things that completely insulted me, but it did literally nothing to hold my interest or make me see any artistic merit. And that's the saddest part, because Disney can make a movie that kids can enjoy that seem goofy on the surface, but they're also great at making surprisingly deep and intricate stories with well thought out messages and themes. But this movie had none of that. Aside from the occasional funny gag, the kind of nice songs, the solid voice acting, and the good but unoriginal directing and cinematography, this all makes Wish out to be one of the most draining Disney movies I've ever seen, just by how aggressively unoriginal it is. And I will fully admit, I have been harsher on this movie than I normally would have, because this movie should have been Disney's magnum opus of the decade. This was meant to celebrate 100 years of Disney. They should have given us something beautiful, something wonderful. But instead, they gave us this snooze fest. I dislike this movie more for what it isn't, rather than what it is, which is what I touched on earlier. Just, the fact that this movie had so much missed potential makes it feel worse than if it was just another Disney movie from a few years ago. My recommendation? Don't watch Wish. If you want to celebrate 100 years of Disney in true spectacular fashion, check out the short Once Upon a Studio. Other than that, I'd recommend to not put this movie on unless you want to write a review like how I did. I wouldn't even recommend putting it on for the kids because there's so many better Disney movies that both your kids and you can enjoy. 3 out of 10. Hey everyone, I just wanted to give a huge thank you to everyone who made it to the end of the video, and I guess I should have said this at the beginning, but we need to remember that even though Disney can make movies that adults can love too, all these movies are primarily made for children and shouldn't be judged too harshly. I also want to say, if you happen to disagree with anything I say in this video, that's awesome, you know? This is just my personal opinion and you can have yours. If you'd like to give your thoughts, please leave them in the comments below. I just want to say thank you all who made it to the end of the video. My next review will be another bad Disney movie, Until then, take care, be safe.